No, you're not going to do that to me on television. Welcome to another episode of Sight to the Community. I'm your host, Jerome Moore, and today we have a live in-studio audience, and we're joined by Dr. Sayward. She gave me the permission to call her Amy, so there's no disrespect to the doctor. From Middle Tennessee State University, we have Dr. Williams from Tennessee State University. I already told y'all, I'm a graduate of MTSU, Dr. Lee, sorry. So we're gonna get preface to MTSU today. And that's all right, that's okay. But thank both of y'all for joining me today. How y'all feeling?
Great, thanks for having us.
Y'all feeling good? How did you all feel about the screening, the documentary, The American Revolution? You all American Democracy Project, you know, American history professors, and how did y'all feel about the excerpt and just based on your expertise?
It actually took me back to when I was in college, the first Ken Burns documentary about the Civil War, watching that in class and thinking that this was a lot different than the documentaries that I'd watched coming before, and super excited about this on the eve of the 250th anniversary, the semi-quincentennial.
You almost missed about 30 years, that's all right. This is the 30. How about you, Dr. Lee? How did you feel about the excerpt that you've seen and had the chance to watch?
I enjoyed what I saw. I was kind of excited about it, and I was thinking, how long is this going to be? And someone said about 11 hours.
12. Yeah, yeah. So it's a.
So when I heard that, I was like, this is going to be 24 for me, because sometimes I watch programs and then sometimes they watch me, right?
Yeah.
But I was excited about it because we haven't had anything, at least in my memory, that delves into the American Revolution.
Yeah.
So it's timely and it's very much needed.
And I'll throw this first question to you, Amy, as far as when we talk about the American Revolution and even post-American Revolution, the identity of an American and a citizen, how would you have defined it in that era of time, going through the American Revolution and even post-American Revolution era?
One of the things I loved about the documentary was it talked about the Americans who chose to fight, to join the revolution, were willing to imagine something different, that they were able to sort of look beyond everything they'd learned about, everything they had experienced as subjects of the British Empire, to imagine something different. And I think that is probably the key element for Americans. So certainly the folks in the documentary, you know, John Adams is not thinking about equality for women, not thinking about emancipation of enslaved people, but those ideas, the idea of imagining other, proved contagious.
Right. How about you, Dr. Lee, the same question?
Something similar, and then the very last word you said made a light bulb come on. Because I remember when we studied the American Revolution in college, our professor talked about how the founders feared a contagion of liberty, right? So you have people who are engaged in this revolution who, you know, for them, the definition of freedom might not have been the same, but they were united on the fact that they needed to break away from Great Britain. One of the things that I focus on in my classes when we talk about this period, you know, the motives of folks, why did they join the Patriots? Or on the other hand, why would some black folks join the British? So the motives, and I think as I watched the documentary, I would like to see it probe a lot deeper in terms of what made a Virginian decide to unite with somebody from Pennsylvania when their interests are very much different.
Yeah. I want to dive in that a little deeper, that the idea of what freedom and democracy meant to different people in that time. But before we do that, we partner with Johnson Learning Center, an MNPS school here right in Nashville. I had some of the students answer this question as well. And so we're going to play a role in of one of the students from Johnson answering what does democracy mean to them.
What's up? My name is Austin Harris, and I attend Johnson Learning Center. I think being a part of democracy means being able to have your own opinion on who represents us and makes our decisions without being judged.
And so when we think about, first of all, it takes bravery to get on that camera and answer that question, especially for a high school student. When we think about post-American Revolution, when we talk about freedom and democracy, who was that really for at that particular time? If y'all want to unpack that for us. So let's explore who was freedom and democracy for in that era. I'll start with you, Amy.
So certainly it was for white propertied men during this period. When we look at Tennessee, which is just a set of settlements up in East Tennessee, people like John Sevier, right? He imagined the American Revolution would give people like him an opportunity to gain land, to gain wealth, part of which was expressed by having enslaved people, and to have opportunities that he would not have otherwise had. But in his journals, you know, he does not imagine that those ideas, those liberties, flow to anyone else. It is a revolution for white propertied men.
Dr. Lee, can you expound on that a little bit about maybe what the experiences were those who were enslaved and indigenous folks as well during that time, even after the American Revolution?
Well, I want you to bear in mind, and this is important to know that African Americans weren't passive observers, right? As soon as Washington needed men, you had African Americans who decided to serve. And then conversely, when Lord Dunmore, the Royal Governor of Virginia, issues a proclamation and say, hey, if you fight for the British, then you'll get your freedom. So they're not passive observers. They're hearing all of this, and this sounds really good to them. So when we look at some of the figures from this period, we find that African Americans were actively involved, and they write about it. Phyllis Wheatley, born in Senegal, she's brought here, she masters the English language, she becomes a poet, and a lot of her poems highlight many of the central themes of the American Revolution. Then on the back end, you have people like Benjamin Banneker, who challenges Thomas Jefferson on how a lot of the stuff that he wrote prior and during the American Revolution doesn't really line up with what he sees.
Right.
Okay, so they were very much a part of this. Native Americans are interesting because they are here, and this new country is going to severely test their presence on their traditional lands. So some of them are being pushed out, but then on the other hand, you have some who try to make concessions to the Americans, and in essence become Americans.
Yeah.
For some it worked, but for the vast majority, it did not. And one interesting person that I can think of right now in the aftermath of the American Revolution was a guy named Jack Civil. You probably haven't heard of Jack Civil, but Jack Civil was here helping to settle Fort Nashville. And he doesn't get land like he expects, and he ends up getting attacked near Donelson, and he goes down toward Chattanooga with the Cherokee, and he actually joins the Cherokee, and he forms what is known as Nickajack's Place.
Wow.
But even in thinking about that story, you know, we got all these tall tales about Tennessee, but Jack Civil's story is a story about a man who's struggling to be an American, a man who is struggling to exist in this new America.
Let's keep it there, Tennessee in the South. Amy, if you can kind of break down maybe what liberty and equality look like in the South, in a state like Tennessee, post-American Revolution.
So to pick up on a story, one of my favorite early Tennesseans of this period is Nanyahi, who is a Cherokee woman. Folks called her Nancy Ward because that was a little easier to manage. But she was very much focused on not how to be an American, but how are we human? And how can the Cherokee people interact with, on a very human basis, these new settlers? There had been traders in the Tennessee area for a couple hundred years, but how can we interact with these? And as she is appealing to people like John Sevier, while the Cherokee and the white settlers are really in open warfare, she says, we're mothers and we have children just like you have children. You know, what could happen if we see each other as fellow human beings rather than as enemies, rather than imagining there's a zero-sum game in which some people will gain the land and the resources and others will lose that. And she held on to this sense of optimism or hope all the way to removal, right? That wasn't a happy ending to that story, but I think the idea is the same today. What happens if we connect with one another primarily as humans, rather than, you know, oh, you're in a group that I don't like, you know, I can't talk to you. If we can connect on that human basis, I think she was genius for thinking about that. Doesn't work during this time period in which more people are thinking about a zero-sum game. Who's going to control the land? Who's going to control the resources in Tennessee?
And I think, like, even today, like, I think what you're talking about is just the whole concept of community, right? Absolutely. And I think there's still a lot of those signs in our own community today, is figuring out how do we have shared resources, right? How do we be able to make sure everyone has affordable housing or access to health care, or not living in a food apartheid, right? And you know, figuring out how we all can remain human with these kind of necessities that we need to thrive and be healthy and grow healthier communities, right? We have another role in I would like to play from another student at Johnson Learning Center. She goes into, you know, freedom and what does it mean to her? So let's play that clip.
Hi, my name is Jeannie. I attend Johnson Learning Center, and what freedom means to me is to not only have the right, but the willingness to do as you please without somebody else's input on what you do, such as dressing how you want, being able to express yourself freely without judgment, and being able to speak your voice.
So I'm going to cue it up so that the audience know. Now, if you would like to walk up to the mic and ask one of our guests a question, this is your time to do so. Remember, no soliloquies. You know, we just want questions, but we're going to continue the conversation. But please feel free to join us in the conversation if you want to by walking up to the mic. Dr. Lee, what are some of the, I guess, aspirations or even challenges maybe that we probably are still facing today that were also occurring during the American Revolution time, especially when it comes around maybe even identity and national identity?
One thing that they grappled with that I see is still grappling with today is, you know, discerning the difference between freedom and license.
Okay.
Right?
Break that down for us. Yeah.
Okay. Freedom is being able to do what you want to do, not being restricted by the government, overly restricted by the government, right? Having a license, though, that's doing whatever you want to do, and you don't care about the repercussions, right? So if I build a plant down in New Orleans and I dump the pollution in the marsh, because there's no regulation that says that I can't do it, I do it anyway, and knowing that it's
harmful.
That's license. I feel like we still grapple with that today, particularly when it comes to the allocation of resources or discerning which group of people are worthy and which group are not so worthy.
We still have an identity crisis.
Without doubt. But I guess in terms of just looking at how they viewed democracy back then and comparing it to today, one thing that remains constant is that democracy is a verb, right? It's an action thing. You vote, then you participate in the democratic process. So that would call for you maybe to go to city council meeting or to serve on some of the other aspects of the city. It might require you to become a part of a neighborhood association or a benevolent society where you decide how you can best serve the people in the community.
We do have a question. If you can state your question, please.
Hi, my name is William Anthony. I have a question for for this woman over here,
Dr. Amy? Okay.
Dr. Amy. Let's see, if one thing you take away from this film, how is it better than the Civil War? Yes, Civil War. Cause I heard a comment that you watched Ken Burns' Civil War, and how is it better than that?
Yeah, so when I was a college student myself, I saw Ken Burns' first documentary about the Civil War, and it really changed the entire genre of the historical documentary. And this one is very much in that genre of taking really a deep dive, spending a lot of time on an issue, especially pulling a lot of what we historians like to call primary sources. So letters from Abigail Adams, speeches from, and letters from George Washington and such, weaving them together to help us understand those really complex issues. And so that's what I love about Ken Burns' documentaries. Thank you for your question.
We'll take the next question.
Good evening. How are you all today? My name is Constance, and watching the documentary, you know, it was talking about the revolution. So from the 1700s till the present, you know, they say history repeats itself. So how do you feel we're going through it again? From watching that, it seems like we're still, you know, we haven't really learned anything. So I would like for you to expound on that, please. Thank you so much.
That's a great question. We talked about that, like especially here in the South. How could we combat some of the division that we had witnessed in the past that are still kind of prevalent today? And I think that's a good question for both of y'all to answer, maybe. Dr. Lee.
Thank you.
The revolution that this documentary is covering is an unfinished revolution, right? Because we needed a civil war to finally get people to move beyond just thinking that we were Virginians or Tennesseans or Floridians or whatever the case may be. But even with that progress, you had the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment that are passed that are significant, some of the most significant amendments that we have. But even with that, you have an effort that's afoot almost as soon as they are passed to overturn them or to undermine them. So we spend most of Jim Crow pushing and going through another revolutionary period, right? You make it to the civil rights movement, and some folks will say that that was revolutionary, but we still have a pushback. So I guess to address, oh, where'd she go? Okay. To try to address your question, I think that this is, our history has been one of continuous revolution. One that we make some gains and then we stumble and we pick ourselves up and we try again. And I think the fundamental question for all of us as Americans today is what role are we going to play in this revolution? And then what's the ultimate goal? Because if you have a revolution, the ultimate goal is to create something different, to create something new, to create something better. And I think we need to reach a consensus on what that next thing gonna look like.
Amy, you want to take a crack at that?
Yeah, to a certain extent, the notion of creating a more perfect union. Of course, we'll never get there, but if we hold that ideal and if we are all working in that direction and speaking together as a community, learning about one another, we have a lot better chance of getting there. I love the correspondence back and forth between John Adams and Abigail Adams that's shared there, right? So John Adams is very focused on bringing about the revolution, that he has an important role to play. And his wife is saying, don't forget the ladies.
Right.
And why should we obey laws that we have no role in following? And you might see a revolution. Indeed, 1848 at Seneca Falls, women use the exact same words, that women are endowed with those same rights. But it's a constant struggle. It's a constant work to move towards the ideals that they put on paper but couldn't imagine what we would be living through today.
Another question.
Hi, I'm Ming Wang. Most of Americans today are worried about if our democracy will survive. The question is, if it's going to survive, what is the special reason our democracy will survive? I think this documentary, American Revolution, is very timely, important. What it taught me today, we know American Revolution is unique. But to me, it's not necessarily unique because it's a fighting against the, the situation, taxation without representation, because many other countries in the history of mankind has fought that. It's not unique because there's infighting among the colonists, because many other countries have history in that. What's unique is the ideal that every human being is equal, albeit initially limited to this small group of white farm owners, eventually extended to African Americans, colored folks, and women in the 20th century. The framework was way ahead of its time. When the framework is so far ahead of time, an idea, equality of human beings, even ahead of time today, 250 years later, 2/3 of the world still don't have democracy. We wonder, is the idea so far ahead that it could not survive in America? And why would the idea so far of its time could be being born 250 years ago? And would it survive? What special quality of that revolution idea of democracy will help America, our democracy, survive today?
Thank you. We might have to get you up here, man. The way you was going, I thought it was over. I thought you. Amy, if you want to.
I think, again, what I love about the Declaration of Independence and even the Constitution, although it's a little less idealistic and focused, is it boils down not just that people are equal, but that is somehow transcends time and place, right? That people are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, although history didn't teach them that, right? Those rights had been alienated time and time again. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, what those meant at the time, what they mean today, those ideas still animate us today. One of the challenges, and the first student from the Johnson Learning Center really talked about, is the difference between democracy and a republic. Of course, we have a democratic republic, that the people vote for our representatives. I wonder if at this point, although people talk about America's democracy being in trouble, maybe it's the republic part. Maybe a combination of gerrymandering, campaign financing, lack of faith in public institutions, in Congress. Maybe what needs to change is less the people voting for representatives, and maybe it's the way in which people are representing the folks that they're supposed to be representing. I often take students from MTSU to visit our state legislators. And some of those legislators can at times be rude, like they're being bothered to have people that they're supposed to represent and that they're not listening. They're not engaged with that process in the way that, especially the people in Pennsylvania, under their state constitution, they imagine that people would be reelected every year so that they would have to be very responsive to the people that they were representing. As we established the state of Tennessee, one of the reasons we have so many relatively small counties compared to those original colonies is the idea was that a representative should be able to ride his horse from one side of the county to the other so that he could visit all of the people that he was supposed to represent. So sometimes, and I hear the same language, that our democracy is failing. I wonder if it's more of the republic, that the ways in which we, the people, are being represented is not representing us any longer. And perhaps more reforms and concrete reforms are needed in that area. Just a thought.
And so with that, I wanted to play one more role in, because we have the principal of Johnson Learning Center. It kind of speaks on what does it mean to be an American.
Greetings, my name is Myron Franklin, Executive Principal of Johnson Learning Center. And what does it mean to be an American to me? Well, to be an American to me is to exercise one's freedom. Freedom to choose, freedom not to choose. It's to exercise the right to fight for what you think you do need in this country. To be an American to me is simple, choice. Choice of movement, choice of thought, choice of action.
And so I think Mr. Franklin wrapped it up just well. Can we give our guests a round of applause? And I want to thank everybody at home that's watching another episode of Slice of Community, and we'll catch y'all next time. Thank you.